Nope. We'll get that going in a moment. I'll use my projecting voice and then it'll be absolutely too loud. So, good morning. I love that. Welcome, fellow fans of numbers and spreadsheets. I so appreciate all of your being here today to discuss how we connect the dots and what are the metrics that matter. So, over the course of today, we're going to hear a lot. But before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors as well as our partners. Our partners that we have involved in this include the Washington Workforce Association, as well as the Washington Workforce Board. And then in addition to that, as a partner, we have the I'm waiting for slides to come up, but Washington Forecast Council as our partners. In addition to our partners, I would like to thank and recognize our sponsors, Catch Intelligence, Geographic Solutions, Monster, and then Washington 529, Washington College Savings Plan. I would also like to thank you, Dave, and really appreciate Dave and the Port of Seattle for their tremendous support for this event. We're thrilled and grateful to be able to spend today at the beautiful conference center, and especially on a day like today. I am planning, Raphael, by the way, to get distracted by that view for at least 5 minutes. And today really wouldn't be possible without our exceptional staff. So I want to just take a moment in terms of those individuals who helped bring it to fruition. Stephen Ross, from whom you'll hear later today, Robert Hagland, Carmen Serrano, Annalise Van Sherman, Doug Tweedy, and Greta Beveridge. Thank you all so much for your incredible work. I also want to ask our regional economists to please stand so that we can quickly recognize them. And you can see their pictures up here, regional economists. So please during the breaks, please be sure to say hello to them, as well as to those sponsors of this event. They'll be gathered in the exhibit hall. So, I started about 9 months ago here at the Employment Security Department, and during that time, I've traveled all over Washington State to see our jobs and career infrastructure and to meet the people who make that happen. I saw up close and personal how diverse our economy is and our state. So we have industries thriving here, doing everything from cloud services to hops production, from shipbuilding to milk frothing, and from selling real estate to producing carbon fiber, with many industries in between. We have very wet areas of our state and very dry areas of our state. We have areas of our state that are incredibly sprawling, and we have areas of our state that are constantly compressing. But even in our diversity, key factors connect us. Each of those industries, especially right now, is trying to fill its talent pipeline. Each of those regions is looking for ways to embrace innovation, as well as the coming of automation and artificial intelligence. And each region is wrestling with societal issues, ranging from the rise in mental and behavioral health challenges, opioid addiction, homelessness, housing affordability, and intergenerational poverty. It's when we come together as a state, and only at that time, that we can actually then tackle these issues more effectively and efficiently. Now, we're in an economic symposium, so some of you may be wondering, where are the numbers? Come on, lady. Here's where the numbers in the spreadsheets come in. If we, now hang on a second, I'm going to just take a little sidebar notice. I say we, that is not because I have a parasite. I say we because it is us collectively. That we is not just the Employment Security Department, that is not just state government, that we is all of us collectively. If we want to show how we are progressing, how we're tackling problems, how we're knocking it out of the park, or where we're failing and need to apply resources, we must use metrics. As Peter Drucker famously said, as you see in this, You can't manage what you don't measure. That's what today's conversation is really about. We're asking the questions. What are we measuring today? What do measurements that we are measuring, do they undergird the outcomes that we want to drive? Do we want the same outcomes for everyone in these diverse regions? Can we find some common metrics? How do we account for variability? How, as a state, do we know we're succeeding? And how do we forecast? And I look specifically at you, Brett. You'll hear from the forecaster in just a moment. How do we forecast and prepare for the future? For example, many people today look at the unemployment rate as a gauge of our state's economic well-being. And every month, my awesome labor market team publishes the updated unemployment figures for Washington State. This past year has seen perhaps the lowest unemployment rate in Washington's history at a whopping 4.5%, which is where it lives right now. But does that tell the right or the whole story? Now, I love numbers and spreadsheets. And in fact, if you ask anybody that I've known for a very long time, that has been a long historical thing. I even have a little I Heart spreadsheets on my computer. Give me a pivot table, and I am happy for hours. But I also love books and stories. As you heard before from my dual degree, I couldn't decide which side to go to, right or left brain. So join me for a moment while I invoke a couple of great storytellers to help us challenge the merits of relying on that figure. Anybody tell me who this is? Scott Bailey. That's a great answer. No, it's not. Not to mention, he doesn't have a pixel version of his picture yet. And we'll work on that. I'm going to call on Charles Dickens. When you look more closely at the county-by-county employment figures, you feel like you've been dropped in the middle of Tale of Two Cities. Somebody reads here. Thank you. We have books people as well as numbers people in here. That's awesome. All right, tell me the quote that I'm about to put up. This is great. I don't have to do my presentation. In other words, King County at 3.5% and Ferry County at 15.2%. That's a pretty big difference. Or you look at the fact that revenue collections for the Washington State Near General Fund are projected to increase 10% from biennium to biennium. That's a $5 billion increase, and that's just, again, the revenue that we're generating. Never mind the fact that Washingtonians' per capita personal income grew by more than 5% last year. That's awesome, right? Woohoo! We're living large. But you juxtapose that with the fact that 26% of Washingtonians are underwater. Those 26% of individuals who happen to earn 200% of the federal poverty line, that's what they get. They are eligible for SNAP benefits. A quarter of our state is eligible for SNAP benefits. Now I invite Mark Twain to join us. Mark Twain famously said, take a man, or I would say a woman, and put one of his feet in a bucket of ice, although a woman wouldn't do this, and the other foot in a bucket of boiling water, and on average, he's comfortable. Again, I don't think a woman would do that. We can't be lulled into satisfaction by averages. The unemployment rate is an important indicator, but it doesn't take equity into account, nor does it measure underemployment. Most people who live in poverty in our state have a job, so they are invisible when we use unemployment as an arbiter of success. Oh, I love hearing the ahas. So how do we make sure that we are not so satisfied by King County's 3.5% unemployment rate that we forget about the 26% who are, again, at just 200% of the federal poverty level across the state? Or, for those employers in the room, how do we also look at that 3.5% figure and recognize that it also means in certain areas of the state we have a dearth of labor available, and in other parts of the state we have an excess of labor available? And employment security, our vision, and what will exist when we succeed is the nation's best and most future-ready workforce with opportunities for all. For all, not just for some. That's why we have an outstanding team of labor market economists here to collaborate with you, to ask questions with you, to workshop ideas with you, and to measure with you. We want to make sure everyone has opportunities to succeed, to determine what works and what doesn't, and to bring our vision to life. In fact, our labor market team is hard at work thinking now about how to reconcile unemployment with equity, trying to identify a new measure that will more accurately reflect our state's true economic health. At the event today, we have people here, as you heard before, as Raphael sort of surveyed literally the landscape of our state in this room, from all over, who bring very different perspectives and backgrounds to the conversation about the metrics that matter and how we connect the dots across our state. Today, we want to provoke many questions from you. And when you walk out of here today, we want you to know about the tools and the people who are available to help you formulate or track those answers. I would love to say I have a magic answer for you right now, but I don't. But that's what we need to work on together. Over the course of the day, you'll be invited to alternately take a wide-angle look for Washington State, as well as zoom in to some regional perspectives. The morning speeches and breakout sessions will give that statewide view, starting off with Brett Bertolin. He is from the Economic and Revenue Forecast Council. More about him in a moment. We'll then switch over to Ingrid Brink from Results Washington, who I have to say I've heard a number of times. I just love listening to her and the work that she does in terms of accountability for our state, and especially our state government. After lunch, Stephen Ross will kick off an afternoon that hones in on Washington's regional economies, but with particular emphasis on commonalities that connect those local dots. He will also tell you about what other talents we have at our disposal that may redefine how we measure success. Directly following Stephen's presentation, the panel discussion moderated by Emery Thomas of American City Business Journals, the folks who publish the Puget Sound Business Journal, for example, will take a deep dive into some of those commonalities. Giving their perspectives on agriculture, healthcare, and real estate, we'll hear from some folks on the front lines. Our new director of the Department of Commerce, Lisa Brown, will be joining us, along with Kim Sullivan of Kaiser Permanente, Washington. Jordan Madsen came all the way over from Selah, Washington to join us. He is a farmer over there whose fields and whose areas I had a chance to walk through, and including his robot facility. And then we'll also hear from Corey Hopkins from Zillow, who will explore the causes and effects of fluctuations in Washington's housing market, a critical area in our economy. Finally, our camera will zoom way out again for the closing keynote for economic cycles. Now, I had the pleasure of hearing from Dan White from Moody's when I was recently in DC at the National Governors Association Workforce Liaisons Conference. And I heard from him as well as Lindsay Leahy from Oregon. I know that you'll enjoy hearing from them and discussing the timely strategies around how do we look at and possibly predict economic cycles, and what do we do to prepare for them. So, without further ado, this is the start of a conversation with us, your virtual team. Now let's get going.